What happens when law enforcement officers become lawbreakers? In this eye-opening video, witness the reactions of 9 former dirt cops as they receive their prison sentences. From shock to remorse, curiosity to disbelief, the emotions run high as these once respected officials face the consequences of their actions. Buckle up and prepare to be captivated by this unique perspective on justice and accountability. Let us start. On the 9th, we have the former Pike County Sheriff, Charlie Reeder, was charged with multiple felony charges, including theft in office and tampering with evidence. He was accused of funneling money from drug busts to support his chronic gambling addiction. Despite denying the allegations and claiming that he used the money to help the community, he was found guilty and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Reeder gave an emotional speech at his sentencing, pleading with the judge not to send him to prison.
Your Honor, please do not send me to prison. I have roamed, but I'm not ruined. I still have a lot of good left in me. I thank you for your time.
He took accountability for his actions and acknowledged that he had brought shame to the sheriff's office. However, Reeder's plea did not sway the judge and questioned why he had taken the money if it did not match the denominations found at the crime scene or from those involved. As part of his plea, Reeder will not be allowed to work for any public office in Ohio. He will only serve 3 years due to the concurrent running of his counts. At number 8 is former police officer Noman Raja has been convicted of 2 counts of manslaughter by culpable negligence and attempted first-degree murder with a firearm. He was arrested for the fatal shooting of Corey Jones, a 31-year-old musician and housing inspector waiting for help on a highway after his car broke down. Jones's killing drew widespread media attention as one of law enforcement officers' killings of black men. During the trial, family and friends of Jones spoke out against police brutality and the violence faced by black people. Prosecutors established that Raja was on duty in plain clothes when he approached Jones's vehicle and fired 6 shots, hitting Jones 3 times. Raja claimed that Jones pointed a legally purchased handgun at him, but prosecutors argued that he fired shots even as Jones fled. The judge sentenced Raja to 25 years on the 2 charges to be served concurrently. The case has had a profound effect on everyone involved. Next up is Zachary Wester, a former deputy in North Florida recently convicted of planting drugs on innocent drivers. Wester's crime started with minor traffic violations and ended up with innocent people going to jail on bogus drug charges, including possession of meth that Wester himself planted. Many of the victims saw their lives crumble as a result of his actions, including Teresa Odom, who spoke at his sentencing hearing. The prosecution used Wester's body cam videos and other evidence to incriminate him, including a stash of ready-to-plant evidence found in the trunk of his patrol car. During the trial, Wester vehemently denied any involvement in planting drugs in any of the victims' cars, claiming he was an ambitious officer who wanted to move up in the hierarchy to the narcotics division. However, he was found guilty of about 67 counts of racketeering, official gross misconduct, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. He was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months in prison, having spent the last 58 days in the Jackson County Jail. He will now be transferred to a state prison to serve the rest of his sentence. It's a sad story of a dirty cop who abused his power and betrayed the trust of the community he was supposed to protect. At number 6, we have Lisette Gonzalez. In Sanford, Florida, the trial of 46-year-old Lisette Gonzalez has ended. She was charged with driving under the influence by a particular officer, Wagner, and was found guilty by the jury. However, at the last minute, Gonzalez's attorney made one final plea to the judge. He reported that his defense was not assessed by a breathalyzer or had her blood drawn, yet the arresting officer reported that she tested above the limit. Respectfully, he asked the court to overturn the jury's verdict and acquit the defendant. The judge then faces the prosecutor and the conversation becomes heated. In a move rarely seen in court, the attorney asks the judge to dismiss the charge and grant the defendant a JOA.
Tell me your position.
Yes, Your Honor. The DMV is in charge of suspending licenses.
Yeah, when officers lie to them.
Correct, Your Honor, and that's why patrons...
Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing.
The state's position...
I'm dismissing.
You cannot summarily dismiss, Your Honor, without a motion for us to be able to respond to.
The judge grants the defendant's request and dismisses the charge. The defendant walks out of the courtroom free of all charges. At number 5, meet Michael Dotro, a former Edison police officer who went on a malicious spree of revenge plots against other officers who may have crossed him during his line of duty. Dotro was eventually arrested for burning his supervisor's home and was set to be arraigned with charges of attempted murder, aggravated arson, official misconduct, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and conspiracy to retaliate. The attempted murder and arson charges relate to Dotro igniting his supervisor's home with 2 gasoline-filled jugs on May 23, 2013. His supervisor and family were home at the time of the 4 a.m. firing, and while the house was heavily damaged, fortunately, none of them were injured. Dotro remained stone-cold silent during the nearly hour-long trial, and the judge expressed his thoughts, saying that because of people like Dotro, victims are afraid to come forward to be part of the criminal justice system. The attempted murder and arson were not the only legal issues Dotro had fought in recent years. In the official misconduct case, he was accused of checking police records and informing his wife of reports related to a tire-slashing incident involving a woman he was reportedly involved with. Dotro also pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy, admitting that he sought revenge against a North Brunswick police officer who had ticketed another individual for drunk driving. Number 4. Lester Bohenblust was convicted of battery on a person 65 years and older and was falsely imprisoned for attacking and slamming a male nurse to the ground at the Jackson Memorial Hospital. The confrontation between the two started after Blust's mentally troubled niece was discharged from the hospital, and her father, Bohenblust's brother, brought her back the next day. Doctors deemed she didn't meet the criteria to be readmitted and told the father to schedule a follow-up appointment. Bohenblust arrived at the hospital and led the nurse to a more private area, where the officer grabbed the nurse by his jacket and slammed him to the floor. Bohenblust was discharged from the force after the incident, having served there for 20 years. He was sentenced to 45 years in jail. At number 3, we have former Brimfield Township Police Chief David Oliver, who recently found himself on the wrong side of the law. Oliver, who had become known for his blunt, humorous commentary about criminals he referred to as mopes, was charged with 4 misdemeanor charges, including unlawful restraint, attempted theft, simple assault, and unauthorized use of property. During his sentencing, the judge in charge referred to Oliver as a mope, telling him, "You become the mope that you wrote about in your book."
The mope that you wrote about in your book.
Despite his resistance, Oliver ultimately pleaded no contest to counts of attempted theft in office and sexual assault involving a female officer, Crystal Castellane, who accused him of sexual harassment. Castellane spoke out during the sentencing, demanding that the plea agreement was not enough punishment for Oliver's actions. She detailed how Oliver's harassment had escalated from hugs to groping, trapping her and forcing her into intimate dances. Oliver disagreed with many of the allegations but pleaded guilty to all charges to move forward with his life. Oliver was sentenced to 2 years of probation and restitution, and he will never be a police officer again. Number 2, Sean Corder. Former Bloomfield police officer Sean Corder was sentenced to 5 years in state prison after being charged with conspiracy to commit official misconduct, tampering with public records, falsifying public records, and false swearing. The charges were a result of Corder's actions in June 2012 when he followed Marcus Jetta onto the Golden State Parkway and, with the help of his backup, dragged Jetta out of his car. Corder then falsely reported that Jetta attempted to snatch his gun and struck one of the backup officers. Based on the newly discovered evidence, all charges against Jetta were dropped, and an investigation was opened into the officers involved, resulting in Corder's indictment. Before his sentencing, Corder expressed concern for his children, while Jetta stated that Corder had a choice to tell the truth, but chose not to. Number 1. Former police officer Daniel Holtzclaw of the Oklahoma City Police Department has been charged with multiple counts of rape, sexual battery, forcible oral sodomy, and other sex charges against multiple African American women in a poorer, majority black portion of the city. Holtzclaw targeted women with outstanding warrants, pending parking tickets, or other criminal records. He was on paid leave until he was charged in August 2014, terminated from the department in January 2015, and his trial began in November 2015. Despite pleading not guilty to all the charges, he was convicted on 18 charges and sentenced to 263 years in prison in January 2016. Holtzclaw's attorney requested a new trial, but the judge denied the request. As the curtains fall in this video, we're left wondering, how could these sworn protectors of the law become this very thing they were meant to fight? Join us as we continue to explore the dark underbelly of corruption and justice in our society. Will justice truly prevail, or will it remain elusive in the face of those who have sworn to uphold it? Stay tuned for more eye-opening revelations.